Welcome to class, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about muscle testing. Whenever I'm trying to figure out what to do or use for myself in the general world, I use muscle testing as one of the tools to figure out what works for me or what might work for me in a moment. And then when I start talking about muscle testing with other people, there's a whole bunch of ideas and misconceptions that show up with muscle testing, or just people feeling like, I don't even know what that is, so I'm not interested or I'm scared of it. So muscle testing is also known as applied kinesiology. This is a tool that's been used for centuries, both in healthcare and in wellness and in the general population. So the first time I was really introduced to muscle testing, I was a teenager. And I was really sick. I had been really sick since I was 5 years old. I was a teenager by this point in time, and everybody was at their wits' end and couldn't figure out how to help me or what was even wrong with me, because there were so many things wrong with me. And my mom had heard that there was a person in a town kind of close to us. I grew up in New Mexico. And this man might have some information that would be able to help me. So all I knew was he was kind of a body worker of some form, but he didn't really do massage, but I didn't know what he did. And I had already seen so many people and been to so many crazy things that I was like, whatever, it's just another one of those things. So we show up in his office. I believe he was a massage therapist, but that's not what we were there for and not what he was doing. And when we showed up in his office, I discovered, first of all, he's Native American. So that was pretty cool. We lived pretty close to a few reservations in the area. So he's Native American. And it was nothing like I had ever experienced before. He had a whole wall. Along one entire wall was a bunch of vials, like little vials, but they didn't look like they had anything in them. It's like, okay, I don't know, whatever. It's just, whatever. And he had me lie down on the table and he was asking me a bunch of questions. He'd already done a huge intake form. And then he said, okay, so we're gonna do some testing, and we're gonna see what it is that you might be allergic to or what it is that might be hard for your body to deal with. And I was thinking, oh great, here we go, allergy testing again. He's gonna take all these needles and prick my back and do all of this allergy testing stuff. And so I think he could tell I was getting a little bit anxious. He's like, don't worry, there's no needles. It's like, oh, you allergy test without any needles. That's weird. He said, so I'm laying on my back, and he said, all I want you to do is put your arm out in front of you, make a fist. And I said, okay. And so I'm laying on the table, arm out in front of me, and he says, all right, I want you to think yes. Think yes. Okay, so I'm thinking yes, and he pushes on my arm, and it's strong. Like he can't push me down, or he doesn't push me down. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And he said, okay, now I want you to think no. And I'm like, okay, no. And all of a sudden, my arm goes weak and my eyes go big. It's like, what happened? How did he move my arm? And why could he not move my arm before? Like, he's a large adult man and I'm just a little girl. And he couldn't move my arm when I said yes. He could move my arm when I was thinking no. And he's like, okay, this will work on you. And I was like, I didn't know what happened. He's like, you're surprised, right? And I said, yeah. And he's like, it's just your body helping us to figure out what is a yes and what's a no, what works for you and what doesn't. And I was totally skeptical. I was like, no, this can't be real. Like that part of my brain that's like, this is voodoo, this is too weird, this isn't real. He's like, well, let's try it again. He's like, I want you to hold your arm up, don't think about anything, and just try to be as strong as you can be and like, keep me from pushing my arm down. And so in my brain, I'm like, okay, don't let him push my arm down. And he starts pushing, and of course it goes down because he's stronger than me. And he's like, okay, so this time I don't want you to fight it. I just want you to match my pressure. Just match my pressure, right? So he's playing around with how much pressure am I willing to match? Am I really fighting it, or am I willing to match his pressure? So he's changing the amount of pressure he's putting on my arm. And then he says, okay, I want you to think about something you like. Think about something you like. And at that point, I was thinking about flowers because there were flowers when we were walking in and they were pretty. And things were pretty, like he's still doing that, match my pressure, testing. He's like, okay, now I want you to think about something you don't like. So I started thinking about cats cats because a cat had attacked me the day before. And all of a sudden I couldn't hold my arm up. And he's like, okay, go back to the thing you like. Flowers, strong. Cats, weak. So I was starting to figure out in that exchange with him that things that were useful or helpful for me or things that I liked would be strong, and things that I didn't or could be have a negative impact on me would be weaker. And I was starting to get that experience, that felt experience in my body, of my body showing up and saying yes and showing up and saying no. So my skepticism went from about here to about here. Went down a little bit. Okay, this is kind of cool. Now I'm a little curious. Like, I'm still skeptical, but I'm curious. And I think that is a huge piece and a huge shift when you're doing anything that's new. If you can go from skepticism to curiosity, it opens the doors. It opens the doors for whatever might be useful for you to learn and to do and to step into. So for me, that was a huge shift, going from skepticism to curiosity. So then he said, okay, I understand you've been sick, you haven't been feeling good, and this has been going on for a while. It's like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, let's just test and let's just see what things might be impacting you in a negative way. He's like, okay, have all of these, wall full of vials, and they all have an essence of something in them. So it's not like I have pine tree in a bottle, but I have essence of pine tree in a bottle. It's not like I have grapefruit in a bottle, but I have essence of grapefruit in a bottle. So here, my brain, normal brain, would be like, oh yeah, that's just too weird. That's not. But I was still in my curiosity. I was like, essence. I don't know what that means, but okay. So he started grabbing some of the vials and putting in my hand, having me hold my hand out, and then testing if I was strong or weak with them. And he went through a whole list. And he wasn't telling me what any of them was, but I could tell in how strong and weak I felt in my arm every time he put something in. And it got to the point that I could tell what my arm was going to do before he even pushed on it. He's like, yeah, see, so curiosity's still in play here. I'm not totally believing this, but I also can't not believe it. Like, this is happening and I can feel it in my body. Okay, cool. So he tested a whole bunch of other things, and he's making a list of things that my body responds not so great to and things that my body responds really well to, but not telling me what those are. And I was okay with that. And then he got through all the things he was going to test, and he's like, okay, so what types of things, what things do you think you're allergic to? And so I started naming out things that I think I'm allergic to, like cats. He's like, yes, you're definitely allergic to cats. Seems like all cats. And then he took it even further, like it's the dander of the cats, it's this part of the cat, and it's even cat saliva. You're allergic to cat saliva. Oh, all right. I didn't even think about what part of a cat I might be allergic to. That's interesting. So we went through the list of things that I thought I might be allergic to. And he said, yeah, I think you're right. And he said, anything else? And I said, bananas. He's like, bananas? And I said, bananas? Why would I think of that? I don't even know where that came from. It was just something that came out of me. I was like, I don't think I'm allergic to bananas. He's like, well, you said it. I'm like, okay, am I? He's like, I don't know. I don't have an essence of bananas. And he's looking, he's like, nope. And he said, all right, here, I want you to hold your arm out and I want you to think banana. And I thought banana and poof, my arm went down. And I was like, wait, it wasn't even in my hand. How did that happen? And he's like, that's where he told me, that's where I started to understand I don't have to have the physical form. I don't have to interact with the physical form in order for my body to respond to it. We do this with thoughts all the time. If somebody is thinking in a negative way and they're having a bad day and they walk into the house, I can feel that. They're having a bad day. Might want to hide from this person. I might want to give them some space. If somebody's having a wonderful day and they're just on cloud nine and everything's going great and they walk in the door, I might want to be a little closer to them. I might want to engage and interact, right? I don't know what happened in their day, but it's the thoughts and the energies and the vibration that they're giving off that my system is responding to. Why does it have to be any different for a form like a banana? Big shift there for me in my experience of the world and how I'd experienced the world from there. So that was really, really informative and really great. And I didn't have words for what was happening. He didn't call it muscle testing. He didn't call it applied kinesiology. It was just something that in his Native American tradition, his grandparents had taught him how to figure out what herbs to use and when to use them in the forest, and what things to do and bring into his life and what things to stay away from. It's something that had been passed down in a tradition for him. He did later on, when I was clearly curious and wanting to know more, because I'm a know more type of person, he did explain that it's called muscle testing. There's a fancy word for it called applied kinesiology, which most people at the time didn't use. This was many years ago. Just say that. I'm not in my 20s. But it was cool and good information to have. And then he took it a step further, and he took his power out of it. And he said, I want you to learn how to do this for yourself. Because clearly there's things that you're having to navigate in your life with your pain and your illness and all the things you're going through. And it feels and sounds from the way you're talking like you had no power in all of this. Everything that's happened to you has been done to you. Everything that people have decided to try, they've decided to try and told you to do this because you're the kid and you're the one that's hurt and sick and ill. It's like, well, yeah, how could that be any different? Because I didn't know. Like, I want to teach you how to do this so that you can figure out for yourself. So he was empowering me in that moment. So he taught me, right? I don't have to lay down on a bed. I don't have to put my arm out. I don't have to do all of this stuff. But he taught me a couple different ways to muscle test. And so when I had a headache, if I wasn't sure if it would be Tylenol or Advil at the time, that would be better for me because they work differently and they work different in different parts of my body. How do I figure out which one? So he taught me how to muscle test, how to hold it in my hand and see which one was stronger. And then to take it even a step further, he's like, how do you know if you need 1 or 2 or 3 or 4? How do you know that part? I'm like, I don't know. I just read the bottle and see. Like, how about you read yourself? How about you let the label inside of you be what you're reading? So hold 1 in your hand when you figure out which one it is and test. And then put 2 and test. And then put 3 and test. Whichever one tests stronger, that's where you're at right now. Right now. It's not about later. It's not about next week. It's not about this is the thing that you're going to do for the next, month. It's right now. This is what would be helpful and useful for you. So that interaction with him was pivotal in my life. It did a couple things. It taught me to turn my skepticism into curiosity, to allow myself to open those doors, to learn and figure out what might work for me. And to stay in that, to allow myself to stay in that. It also taught me that while there's a lot of information in the rest of the world about how things work and why things might work, when I listen to myself, I can get that information that applies to me in the moment. And he taught me how to empower myself in all of the things that I did from there. Now, as I moved forward through my life, I pretty much only used muscle testing when I was looking at the medicine cabinet, because that's how I was taught to do it, medicine cabinet specific. Now, fast forward 20 so years, and I learned about something called emotion code. Emotion code is a way of supporting somebody in removing trapped emotions that have been in their body that their body's just kind of tired of holding on to. Changing the vibration and the frequency of that and releasing that. And my mom wanted me to learn this technique. I was not yet a massage therapist. She wanted me to learn this technique because she thought it would be cool and we would learn it together. So we bought the book, we read the book, and we learned it together. And lo and behold, there was a whole chapter in the book about muscle testing, about applied kinesiology. And in my brain, I was like, oh, I know how to do that. I was taught that when I was a kid, but I didn't use it all the time. That okay. And there were about a dozen different ways to muscle test in the book. Like, okay, I got this. I know how to do this. And I'm learning different ways to do it. So I learned some modifications instead of having to hold my arm out and do all of these things on how to muscle test. And I use that every day in my work now, and I use that every day in my life now. When I am finished making breakfast or lunch or dinner, I open my little supplement drawer and I know I'm probably going to take an enzyme. So I have 4 different types of enzymes I can take. So I'm going to muscle test what's the most effective enzyme for me today. Cool. I also have other supplements that I know that can be useful for me, but I don't really know how often I need to take them. So I muscle test that. Would vitamin C be good for me today? Would multigreens be good for me today? What would be useful for me today? I also have a ton of essential oils because I've been using Young Living for, a few years, since 2013. I have a lot of oils and have a lot of them that are my favorites that are just go-to. So I don't want to ignore all the other things that I have that I could be using, but I just don't because I forget they exist. So I'll muscle test to see what is most effective for me today. I want to change up my routine. I want to try something new. I'll muscle test it. So that's a little bit of background about how I learned muscle testing and how I use it in my life. I also use it though in restaurants and for making dinner and for all of these other places and things. It doesn't have to be about the medicine cabinet or about the essential oils or about the supplement. If I go to a restaurant and I'm looking at the menu and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not craving anything, like everything sounds good, I just don't know what to get, I'll muscle test based on the menu. I don't have to hold the food in my hand. Based on the menu, what's going to be most supportive of me? And it's made it a lot easier. Now, some things to pay attention to is just because you're muscle testing does not take away your free will. So when you're going to muscle test something, you have to let go of the outcome. You have to decide before you muscle test that whether it's a yes or no, it doesn't matter. All you're going to do is listen to the answer, and then free will comes in after that. Then you get to choose what you do with that. So there are times that I'm sitting in a restaurant and I'm like, okay, I don't know, it's probably going to be a burger or a pasta, but I'm going to muscle test the whole menu and I come up with a salad. All right, well, let's face it, I'm not going to eat the salad today, right? So I might muscle test that, yes, that salad is most healthy for me. I still get my free will. I still get to choose. You have to take that step in choosing whatever it is. So whether you're choosing to, yes, I'm going to have the thing that I'm tested as strongest, or I'm going to make another decision. The free will is still there. This does not take away your free will. Once I allowed myself to have that part of it, to just get the answer without any connection to the outcome, just have the answer, it was easier for me to let go of, I want this to be a yes, or I want this to be a no. I want to test that chocolate bar, that chocolate sundae is going to be the perfect thing right now. I was able to let that go. So there are times that I'm testing, I'm going to have a dessert, I'm testing what's, the best dessert. You know what, if I get a no and it's really what I want, I'm probably going to do it anyway. Once I was allowed myself to have that, it allowed my muscle testing to be cleaner, right? I'm not attached to the outcome. I don't have to do what it says, but it allows me to make that decision consciously. So things that can affect muscle testing, there's a whole bunch of philosophies on muscle testing, tons of ways to do it, and a lot of rules that you can follow. I don't. I've used it enough in my life to know what works for me. Hydration can be useful. If you're really, really, really dehydrated, it can be hard for your inner wisdom, your inner body and knowing to show up for you. So hydration can be helpful. There's other things that can be helpful, but not overriding the answer before you even get it is the other part. So that's why it's important for me to remember that I have free will and I'm going to enact my free will, but I'm going to allow the answer to show up to take away that part. Anyone can muscle test. And when you muscle test, you want to do it for yourself, unless you have permission to do it for somebody else, right? Don't go out there and hijack other people's awareness. Don't go out there and hijack other people's stuff. That's 1, not nice, 2, not kind, and 3, just don't do it. People don't like it. And even those people who like it, they only like it because they don't know what's really happening. So don't hijack other people's stuff. If you have permission to muscle test for somebody else, or permission to help somebody figure out what they're trying to figure out, that's a whole nother story, only with permission. So you can do it with others with permission, but really it's used for yourself. And it's something to use about the present moment, okay? Health and wellness, great place to use muscle testing. Lottery numbers, I don't know. But health and wellness, great place to use it. Some people refer to muscle testing as their intuition, as an internal sensation, as awareness, as their subconscious speaking up. And it's something that we use in life already without knowing it. You're walking down the street and you could go right or left, but you're really drawn to the left, right? Have you had that experience? Don't know where I'm going, but I'm going this way and I don't know why. That's muscle testing. It's our inner part vibrating with something that's saying go this way. So that's a way to use it. So I'm going to show you a few ways to muscle test so that you can actually start playing with it and using it. So first one I'm going to teach is the one that is generally the easiest for people to learn. It's not the one I use because it takes longer, but it's a good way to start. So if you'll stand up with me, and go ahead and do this with me. So what I want you to do is stand up, and I want you to look down at your feet. You want your feet parallel pointing forward, and you want them about hip width apart. So lined up with your hips, pointing forward. Soft knees, don't lock them. Okay, and then you're gonna stack. Your ankles are below your hips are below your shoulders are below your ears. So you're kind of lined up. You're not leaning back, you're not, head jutting forward. Tuck your chin back a little bit so that your ears are above your shoulders are above your hips are above your ankles, toes facing forward. And then with your arms down beside you, for a lot of people, this is easier with your eyes closed. But if you close your eyes and automatically get dizzy, don't close your eyes, just kind of soften your gaze. So don't focus on me, soften your gaze. And I want you to think, yes. Allow your body to do whatever it does and think, yes, 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 yes. Do you see that? Yes. So some of you, most of you are already leaning forward. You're already coming a little bit forward. That is yes. That's yes. That's that sway test. And they call it a sway test because generally we're lined up, and when we go yes, we sway forward. Now I want you to come back here and think no. No, 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 no. Yeah, don't fall over. Good job. Swaying back is a no. Yes, we tend to sway forward. No, we tend to sway back. Okay? Got it? So now I want you to, yeah, there you go. Don't fall over. Perfect. So now I want you to think about something that you love, something or someone that you really love. So in my instance with the Native American in the office, it was flowers. So think about that thing that you love, or just think about love. All right, there you go. Now let that go. Think about something you really don't like. War, famine, bills, taxes. Yeah, there you go. Can you feel that forward and back? You kind of make sure you're keeping your knees soft. Don't lock your knees. And take away the idea that you have to go in any direction. Okay? Now let's try this one. Standing up, I want you to think ice cream. Ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. All right? Which way did you sway? I swayed forward, right? It doesn't mean that this is the healthiest thing for you right now. It doesn't mean it's not. So when I'm thinking ice cream right now, I'm not asking myself, is ice cream the thing to have? I'm just thinking about ice cream, and my body's saying, yes, I like ice cream. I respond well to ice cream. Now, if I were to ask, is ice cream the healthiest thing for me to have right now? Immediately I start going back, right? May or may not be the case for you. That's okay, because it's specific to you right now. So how I frame the question in my head can impact my body's response, because my body's responding to how I'm thinking about it. So if I'm just thinking about ice cream, I'm thinking about, honestly, how much I like ice cream and I want ice cream all the time, and can I have ice cream at every meal? So my body is like, woohoo, ice cream. If I'm thinking, is ice cream the healthiest choice for me right now? That's when I go back. So how you think about or frame the question can affect your muscle testing, okay? So when you're in a grocery store and you're in the cereal aisle or the breakfast aisle or, the dairy aisle or whatever aisle, and you're debating between a couple things, this is something that you can do without looking too weird. Just, feet forward, line up, stand in front, and then look at the thing that you're thinking about, whether or not would be good for you. And if you start to lean forward, then, okay, I'm gonna get that. And go on to the next thing, and if you start to lean back, okay, not that thing. So you can do this just by looking at things or thinking about things that would be helpful or useful for you. So I did this for a friend whose cat was having problems, needed to change its diet, couldn't figure out what to change for the diet. So I had permission from the parent of the cat, the owner of the cat, and I tuned into the cat and was like, okay, cat, what, this clearly is not for me. I'm allergic to cats, not really interested in them. Love them as things, as beings, but I don't need to interact with them, but here to help out this cat. What of these cat foods would be helpful for you? And I was able to hone down on the one that would be most useful for this cat. And I've had a lot of practice doing that, so it made it easier for me, especially easier for me to do it for another being, in this case, not a human being. So when you're learning to muscle test, it's a good idea to do it in practice for yourself first until you're really comfortable with it and you really trust the answers. So the sway test is one way to muscle test, okay? There's a lot of ways. You can muscle test by holding something in your hand. So if you're doing this for yourself, you can put whatever it is that you're thinking about in your hand, and you can hold it out in front of you. Now, you can do this for somebody else too. If I had somebody else in the house right now, I'd do that, but I live alone and we're on shelter in place, so that can't happen. But if you're helping somebody else figure this out, you can have them hold their hand out in front of them. So it's going to be parallel. I'm not going to arm wrestle this person, but I want them standing straight up, their arms straight out in front of them like this. And I'm holding, in this case, I'm holding a bottle of aqua tia in my hand, just because it's handy and I have it. And then you take your other fingers, 2 fingers, and you want to test above the bump in their wrist, right? You never want to test below the bump in their wrist. You don't want to push down here, because our body's natural reaction is going to be protection. If my body knows if I fight too hard, a press right here, I might break something. So you do not want to test above this bump in the wrist. You want to test just below it. So 2 fingers just below that bump in the wrist, whether it's yours or somebody else's. And then just gently push down. Okay, so in this case, you don't have to muscle test. You're just seeing how is the response. So I can see how strong it is. Right now, this is really strong. I'm going to change up the oils. There's a huge difference. This is ginger. So right now, ginger, not the thing for me, okay? Using the same amount of force, I can't even move my arm right now. Aqua tia, apparently something that would be very useful for me, okay? Now, if that's uncomfortable for you, doesn't feel really good, or you have any problems with your shoulder, then don't do that. I do it, when I'm doing it on myself, I do it with a bent arm, 90 degrees, right here. This is easier on my shoulder and it's easier on me. I still use my 2 fingers, still just above that bump in my wrist, and I press down from here. Super strong, aqua tia. I'll change back to ginger. Super weak with the ginger. You see the difference? So play around that with yourself. You can use anything, okay? So I have honey. I'm gonna hold honey. It's kind of okay. Right? It's got a little bit of a give, but then it stops. And then I have some pure cane sugar, organic pure cane sugar. And that one, not so much. It doesn't completely fall, like when I was holding the ginger. The ginger just goes, right? So can you see that difference? So you can do that with different objects and different things. So you can push down on your own hand, or you can have somebody else push on your hand for you. So if you have somebody around you, your significant other, your kid, your neighbor, your roommate, your housemate, your whatever, you can have them push on your arm. Just make sure it's closer to your shoulder, beyond the bump, and not on your wrist. You don't want to hurt yourself. And remind each other you're not arm wrestling. It's not about, can you stop me from moving? It's about, can you allow yourself to show yourself, and maybe the person you're working with, how you will respond to this product, whatever this product or thing is. For me, it's always easier to do it tucked in, because then I'm just this part is moving. When I put my arm way out here, then I have to reach out further to, engage. And then I tend to hold more pressure on my shoulders when I have issues with my shoulders. So I like this one for myself better. You figure out what works for you though. Now, What I actually do when I muscle test is I tend to use the interlocking fingers. So this is another version. We have the sway test, we have the arm straight out, we have the bent arm, and then we have interlocking fingers. So think about this. If you take your thumb and index finger and interlock them like this, right? Now we have, they stay together. See that? So I want you all to do this. Put your fingers like this. And I want you to say yes and pull apart. Yes, 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 yes. Got it? And then see how loose can you have your fingers? How little pressure can you use and still say yes, 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 and have them stay together? Yes, yes, yes. Less pressure, less pressure. Yeah. It's not about arm wrestling or finger wrestling yourself. It's just yes, yes, yes. Okay, now, no. Woohoo, it broke. Very cool. Yes, 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 no, no, no. Yes, yes, no. So play around with what's a yes and what's a no for you. Yeah, cool, huh? Kind of weird. First time, I didn't think that that would happen. The first time I was learning to do this with the interlocking fingers. And I was like, oh, this is silly. Of course it's, I can know, yes, 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 no. Wait, what? How did that, I don't know why I thought it would be different or weird. Of course not. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. Other people have been helping me with this since I was a teenager. Why wouldn't this work? This is how I tend to muscle test in my life now because it's easier. And it can be a little bit hidden. So when I'm at a restaurant with a table full of other people and I really don't know what I want to eat, I don't have to like stand up and sway. I don't have to put my arm out and press. I can have my hands under the table and just yes, no, nope, that's not it. Yes, no, nope. Okay, yes, no. I can do it like that. If a waiter comes up and is like, okay, so we're, you're gonna have a side salad with us. What kind of dressing do you want? I don't know. What kind of dressing do you have? Right? Under the table, hands are like this, and the waiter will start, listing off the dressings: blue cheese, ranch, balsamic, honey vinegar, honey mustard. Okay, so there you go. I have a couple answers that are yeses, and I have a bunch of answers that are no. So I can use that as a tool, kind of in a hidden way, without feeling like I'm crazy, or without feeling like other people around me are going to be like, what are you doing? This is one that it took me a while to really trust, though. Once I got it, and I definitely trust it now. But I realized that this is one that's easy for me to override if I decide I'm going to override it. So I can turn a no into a yes. I can decide that I'm just going to like really hunker down on my fingers and not let them come apart. And I can turn a yes into a no if I really try. So this is where I really had to bring in my reminder to myself that I have free will. Whatever answer I get is just the answer to the question that I'm asking. It doesn't mean that that's how I have to interact with it. I can decide not to take that advice, just like I can decide not to take the advice from my doctor, my parents, my neighbors, my friends. I have that free will and decision power. I get to do that. Once I did that, then it was much easier for me to test for whatever the answer might be, and then allow that to be the answer. Additionally, it doesn't have to be your thumb and index finger. So when I'm doing emotion code sessions for other people, because I'm a certified emotion code practitioner, I muscle test a lot in a session, like many, many, many times, over 100 times. If I'm always using this, my fingers might get a little bit tired. You can use any two fingers, even pinkies, any two fingers. It tends to be easier for me, clearly, if it's a thumb and one of my other fingers. I'm not quite sure how I would do that with a, whatever, but your thumb and any other finger can work. So if you notice that you're overriding your answers with your index finger, try testing with your pinky and your thumb. Yes, no, yes, no. Pinkies tend to be less strong. So a yes doesn't take much pressure to be yes, and no, it's harder to override. So if this is a challenge for you and you want to try the interlocking fingers method, play with one of your other finger combinations and see if that's the thing for you. Yeah, there you go. So playing around with that. Now, that said, you don't have to hold the thing in your hand while you're testing. You can. So I'm going to hold the ginger in one of my hands, right? Got my ginger in one of my hands, and I'm going to test a no. So then I can put the aquatilla back in my hand and test a yes. I don't have to hold it though. You don't have to make it harder on yourself. I can just look at or think about the aquatilla, or I can just look at or think about the ginger. And there you go. I get the same answer. If you need to work your way up to that, then by all means go for it. Put whatever it is that you're testing, in this case it's going to be lime, in one of your hands and then test. And then take your other thing, in this case tangerine, and test. Okay, tangerine tests a no for me right now. Lime tests a yes. So you can have it in your hand or you can think about it. Wherever it is that you need to start so that you can build up your awareness and your ability to test these things, go with that. Now, when I have something bigger like honey, it's a little bit harder to hold and test, but you can do it. The other thing is, as you get better at this, your interlocking fingers both of them don't have to interlock. So it doesn't have to be, all the way, right? You can do like this. Yes, no, yes, no. Yeah, yes, no, yes, no. There you go. Yep, you got it. So you don't have to completely interlock. You can just do a straight finger. Yes, no, yes, no. For me, when I was learning, it was easier to do the interlocking. For some reason, I trusted that more. And then it got to the point where I could just do the one finger and breaking the circle. And if you're going to hold something in your hand while you're doing it, just the one finger can be easier, right? So there's that piece. There's another one that you can do that can be really easy and can be really subtle, so that the general public or the person sitting next to you doesn't know you're doing it. And I like to call this the tiny fiddle. So all you do is you take your thumb and your pinky and just gently rub them together, okay? Now, if they're moist or whatever, dry them off, and then just gently rub them together and think yes, 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 and think no, right? So no gets sticky and it's like, it's hard to move my finger across. Yes, I have a slide. Yes, no. So it can be a subtle one, and it doesn't have to be your pinky and your thumb. It can be any two fingers. You can do it here. Yes, no. It's like no tends to skip. It drags, it catches, and yes slides. So you can do any finger on any finger, and you can even do your hands. Yes, 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 no. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird, huh? So if you're trying to be subtle about it, maybe the person you're sitting next to just thinks you're a weirdo already and you don't want to add to that. You can do that subtly under your table with your hands anywhere. Just doing this, most people aren't going to think too much. I mean, I wouldn't hold it up in the air and do it, but just having this movement, people aren't probably going to notice it or think very much about it. But it can be a way to help you tune into what's happening inside or how your body's responding to something. So that's another pretty easy one to do that some people like to do. So yes, no, but noticing the difference and learning the difference for you. One more version of muscle testing, which a lot of people don't think about as muscle testing, is using a pendulum. Now, there are people out there who are like, ooh, muscle testing, that's voodoo, but I could do a pendulum. Pendulum is okay. And the reverse happens. Oh man, pendulums, that's crazy stuff. That's voodoo, that's too weird, but I could muscle test. Honestly, there's no difference. The answer is still coming from within. So to do a pendulum, you can use almost anything as a pendulum. Some people have a lot of rules around what's a pendulum and how it will work, and other people don't. You can put almost anything on a string or take off a necklace. It can have a point to it. It doesn't have to. You can buy a crystal, you can spend thousands of dollars, you can spend all kinds of stuff. This was something that my mom did. She learned it from her grandmother, but she never called it muscle testing. She never called it applied kinesiology. She just called it, I don't know, figuring out what the answer is. And she would take off her ring, and she would take off her necklace, because her necklace was on a chain, and she put her ring on the chain, and then she'd hold it up, and she would see what the answer was. So the way you do this, I have here a necklace, just happens to be what was around. So you want something on a string or a chain that has the ability to move, right? Something fluid and flexible. And then something just to hold it down and anchor it. Mine happens to have a little point on it. It's a necklace that's a circle, but the point, it doesn't have to have a point. My mom would use her ring. Have it there, just hanging down until it becomes pretty still, and then just say yes. Show me yes. And watch how it starts to move. Okay, I'm not moving. I'm just saying, show me yes, and see how it starts to move. Okay, now I'm going to say, show me no. Show me no. And it changes. Right? So in this instance, now no is going this way. And yes is going kind of in a circle. It could be different for you. Sometimes for people, yes is this way, no is this way. Sometimes yes is this way and no is this way. Whatever it is for you is fine. When you're using a pendulum, just start by holding it down, holding it still, letting it be for a moment, and then show me yes. Give it a moment, see what it starts to do, and then show me no, so that you see the difference between a yes and a no. And then you can use it to test. Okay, so we'll go back to Akotia. Akotia. Nice circles going on here. I know it's kind of hard to see. And then I'll go to Ginger. Ginger. Pretty soon, now we're going in that no territory. Right? I'm not changing anything here. But it's interacting with my system. It's interacting with the electromagnetic, the frequency, the energy of my system, and how my system is responding through that pendulum. So using a pendulum isn't really different than muscle testing. But if you're not comfortable with it, don't go for it. If you are, cool. It's just another option, another way. Now, if I was in a restaurant trying to figure out what to have for dinner, I could pull off my necklace and hold it over and see. That's fine. I might not. I might just do this or this under the table to figure it out. It's just another option. So I want to give you a lot of options that you can use and a lot of ways to play with it so that you can start playing with it. Really, it's important to practice any of these techniques that you want to learn to do until you can trust it. Until you can trust, one, the answer, and two, yourself to allow the answer to show up, even if it's an answer you don't want to hear. Am I allergic to beer? I don't want to hear that answer, but I'm going to allow it to show up. And the answer is yes, I'm allergic to beer. I'm very allergic to beer. Right? Am I allergic to bananas? I don't want to hear that answer because it affects everything when I go out for ice cream or smoothies or anything. But I'm just going to allow the answer to show up. Yes, I'm allergic to bananas. Okay, now I get to choose what I want to do with that. So you have to allow yourself to practice until you trust the answer that shows up and yourself to allow that answer to show up. And then you get to bring in your free will and you get to take whatever outcome you want from it, whatever action you want from it. So don't override the answer. Don't override the answer. Allow the answer just to be whatever it is. Take your own sense of what you want out of it. Just get the answer and then bring your sense of what you want back into it and decide what you do with that. So I use this when I have when I'm debating on supplements. Like I said, with Young Living, there are 4 or 5, 6 different types of enzymes. And I happen to have 4 of them that I keep on hand because they all work differently with different foods and with my body at different times. I would be completely overwhelmed figuring out what enzyme to take when. I could have a chart that says, okay, so anytime I'm having primarily dairy, I want allerzyme, and primarily wheat, I want this, and primarily beef, I want that one, and chicken, that I could have that chart, it exists. Or I can muscle test. Okay, here's what I'm gonna have for dinner. What enzyme is gonna work best for me with the dinner that I'm going to have? And then I'll test. Allerzyme, detoxzyme, essential zyme 4. Okay, essential zyme is the thing for me today, right? If I have my supplements that I take, I can test what is the thing for me today. I may or may not need vitamin C every day. I may or may not need calcium every day. The other thing is I may need the calcium, but I may not be able to use it today because I don't have the other things that I need in my body. So using these things to help myself navigate that can be really helpful. Also, when I'm trying to figure out what to order in a month, what to bring into my life, what to start adding to my list of things, I can take my product catalog, either in person or online, and I can turn to the supplement section and I can muscle test. So in this case, if I turn to, okay, so I'm on the nutrition, targeted nutrition section in my catalog. It's a couple pages long. I can go through and muscle test everything on each page, or I can take a minute and just look at each page and then look at the next page, right? So I'm just looking at them. I'm not evaluating them. It's 4 pages long. I'm not evaluating and looking at everything. I'm just letting my subconscious like take in what's on each page. And then I can muscle test. All right, is there something on one of those 4 pages that would be useful for me? Yes. Is it something that I already have? No. Okay. Is it on the first page? No. Turn the page. Is it on this page, second page? No. All right, turn the page. Is it on the third page? Yes. Okay. There's 6 products on that page. Is it on the left-hand side? No. Is it on the right-hand side? Yes. Okay, now I'm down to 3. You see how I've narrowed it down really quickly? So I'm down to 3. Is it PD 80/20? Yes. Is it prostate health? No, I don't have a prostate. Don't need that one. Is it pure protein complete vanilla? No, I actually have that in my cabinet, so I know that's not the one because that wasn't the question I asked. So PD 80/20. Turns out that's in my order for this month. It's already on the way. Now, did I know that that was, but I can use these tools to help me figure out what to add, what to take out, what I need, what I don't need. It can be really helpful to use like that. So I hope that you find this helpful. I hope this is something that you will play with and that you will practice with. I invite you to practice with all the different ways. If sway testing works best for you, then use that. Use that until you're really comfortable with it. Oftentimes, once I started to become more familiar and comfortable with it, I got to the point that I could know what the answer is before I even started swaying. And I can often do it sitting down. It's easier to get the answers at first when you're standing up, but I can do it sitting down. And then add in some of the other ones. Practice with some of the other ones so that you have many options. This became really important for me when I hurt my fingers. So I hurt this knuckle right here, and I used to only muscle test like this, which meant I kind of couldn't muscle test. So having those other options, I had to learn and practice all of these other ones. Having those other options is really useful. So my invitation to you is to play around with it, practice with it, allow yourself to learn what's a yes and a no for you, allow yourself to learn what works for you, and allow yourself to trust the answer and to trust yourself to allow the answer to show up, and then you get to decide what you're going to do with that. I hope this was helpful for you. If you're watching this on a replay on YouTube or Facebook, I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe and watch some of my other videos that you might find helpful. If you have questions, please let me know. I'm happy to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.